Legend has it that the Brijuni Islands formed part of the original paradise, which remained intact even after the devastating descent of evil. It is therefore not surprising to hear that all that is beautiful in Istria is gathered in these good 700 hectares, and that the Brijuni Islands are the most beautiful jewels among the Adriatic islands. This is embodied in the largest of these islands, the once elite island of Veliki Brijuni, as well as the smaller, less well-known Mali Brijuni, second largest island in the archipelago. Allow us to take you on a brief tour of these magical islands located off the southwestern coast of Istria. You can listen to this audio guide anytime and anywhere, at home, in a hotel, or on the beach, before going on holiday, or when you are already in Istria. Just be careful when listening and remain attentive to the world around you to avoid potential dangers. Now, let's begin unveiling the mysteries of the Brijuni Islands. In prehistoric times, Veliki and Mali Brijuni are believed to have been one single island. As time passed, rising sea levels and erosion caused by strong ocean currents left the islands separate. Veliki Brijuni has always been the economic and cultural center of the entire archipelago. Due to its rich deposits of high-quality limestone and a somewhat remote and exposed location, the island of Mali Brijuni was bestowed a different fate. Long before people populated this territory, it was a place where dinosaurs roamed. This is evidenced by the fact that over 200 dinosaur footprints have been found here, dating back 100 to 120 million years. The first human traces on the archipelago of Brijuni are, of course, much more recent and date back to the Neolithic period. The first inhabitants engaged in agriculture, pottery, hunting, and fishing. They were also skilled in crafting stone weapons and tools. In fact, the amount of stone fragments found in this area indicates that some kind of stone processing workshop must have been located here. In the second millennium BCE, probably due to a rising insecurity caused by the incursions of new Indo-European peoples into this area, the indigenous inhabitants moved from the open areas of the archipelago into the hills, where they built stone hill forts. These were surrounded by strong stone ramparts, carefully constructed using the dry stone wall building technique. There were as many as 3 around the Gradina hill fort on Veliki Brijuni. While there are several remains of hill forts on that island, we know of only one on Mali Brijuni. Stonemasonry was an important craft in this area, even when the Brijuni archipelago was ruled by the Romans. The Romans began settling here in the 2nd century BCE. They established a new model of social relations and brought about an accelerated change in the image of the islands. They built a number of countryside villas surrounded by large estates they called Villae Rusticae, an impressive seaside villa called Villa Maritima, fish ponds, spas, and temples dedicated to Neptune, Venus, and other deities. There was one called Villa Rustica, also on Mali Brijuni, but unfortunately its remains are scarce. In ancient Roman times, viticulture, olive growing, and stonemasonry flourished. This period also saw the beginning of trade in Brijuni stone. The Romans perfected the technique of stone construction. They used mortar as a binding material for reinforcement. Since this new building technique relied on the use of lime, it was already in this period that lime kilns emerged on the Brijuni Islands, including Mali Brijuni, which was abundant with rocks and firewood. The production of lime on the islands continued until the mid-20th century. In Roman times, quarries were located near the seashore, which made loading ships easier. Stone blocks were dragged to the coast along rails dug into the ground and greased with tallow. To transport stone blocks along these rails, a wooden sleigh-like structure was used, similar to 2 sleds connected with crossbeams. The collapse of the Roman Empire in 476 was followed by a century of great changes. The history of the Brijuni Islands was shaped by the Ostrogoths, Byzantines, Franks, and Slavs. The area of the former Roman villa in Dobrica Bay on Veliki Brijun was a particularly lively place. On its grounds, a new settlement emerged, which was surrounded by a mighty wall built for protection in the turbulent times of late antiquity. The remains of these constructions can still be seen today. When we view such remains and reflect on the workers who made them, it is fair to recall that under the Romans, slavery was an established fact of labor. Only gradually was this abolished and replaced by the feudal system. Next were the Venetians. With the arrival of the Venetian Republic in the 14th century, there began a long and volatile period due to recurrent epidemics of plague and malaria. Yet throughout the coming centuries, stonemasons sourced the stone on a massive scale and dispatched it to Venice, where it adorns several palaces. The Doge's Palace is believed to be one of them. The fall of La Serenissima in 1797 was followed by a century of stagnation due to malaria, which even Napoleon's governor of the Illyrian provinces failed to eradicate. At the end of the 19th century, the Austrian industrialist Paul Kupelwieser finally managed to awaken the sleeping beauty of the Brijuni Islands. With the help of the Nobel Prize winner Dr. Robert Koch, he succeeded in eradicating malaria and also employed an excellent gardener, Alois Chufar, to create parks and restore the vineyards. Kupelwieser thus managed to turn the Brijuni Islands into the most cosmopolitan of all Austro-Hungarian resorts. Along with recurring bouts of malaria, another story began unveiling that would completely change the appearance of the Brijuni Islands. In 1853, Pula became the main war harbor for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. An arsenal, a shipyard, and a range of facilities necessary for military operations were built there. Understandably, these facilities required protection, and due to their geographic location, the Brijuni Islands proved ideal for this purpose. From the construction of the first war fortress on the Straže Hill of Veliki Brijun, and until the end of World War I, the Austro-Hungarian army continually built new fortifications and positions for cannons and torpedoes, which at that time represented the most modern and efficient way of defending ports against incursions from the sea. The most important fortress on Mali Brijun was Fort Brijuni Minor, guarding the access to Pula through the Fajana Channel. There were as many as 10 fortifications built on the island, separated by kilometers of roads and railway tracks. Visitors to the island are welcome to explore these fortresses and listen to their stories. Even in its most glamorous days, the archipelago of the Brijuni Islands was also by far the most fortified military area in the region. Pause to consider that throughout the centuries of human existence on the Brijuni Islands, the images and symbols of paradise on earth were mixed with those of war, disease, and anxiety. Now the stonemasons are gone. The admirals and soldiers are gone. So are the Romans, Goths, Franks, Venetians, and Austrians. The Brijuni Islands can now finally reveal their true faces, unburdened by the past, finally in harmony with themselves, showing off their lush vegetation, birds, deer, and mouflons. The air smells of myrtle and rosemary, and you can hear the chirping of crickets and the murmur of waves. In the summer, when the night slowly falls over the island, night after night theater performers gather here to tell stories and sing songs revealing the truth about the world and ourselves. This is when time stops for a moment to give us a chance to touch the essence of self in silence. When the curtain drops and the audience leaves, the island is left again to the sea, sun, and wind. Just like when Prospero left the island after throwing his book of magic into the sea, some Brijuni Isle is now that of Ariel, an island of poetry, music, and joy.